gonna fix this. But in this day, gotta go.
He changed my life in so many ways. I missed so many bullets, police, all types of stuff because I was busy with him.
This is Donald Curtis, better known as Big Boss Donno, a beloved rapper, artist, and father from Washington, D.C., who would be found dead on top of his son's grave with a final message left for everyone to read. On the morning of July 21st, 2025, officers were called to a cemetery in southeast D.C. When they arrived, they found Donno lying across a gravesite, motionless, alone, and surrounded by silence. There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and only one chilling detail, a message he had posted just hours before he died. For a man so deeply woven into the city's culture, a man known for his murals, his music, and his impact on the youth, nothing about his final moments made sense. But what looked like a sudden tragedy was actually the final chapter of a story no one around him fully understood. And as investigators retraced his steps, they uncovered a series of events that revealed a much darker truth. But before we reach that devastating moment, we have to go back to the joy, the love, and the slow unraveling that led him to that gravesite. This is the life and death of Donald Curtis.
Once I finesse this rap
Pull up
game
or shut up,
with
man.
niggas, I'ma finesse inside toilet paper, get the with y'all, I'm quitting the rap.
Big Boss Donno, born Donald Curtis, was more than just a musician in Washington, D.C. He was a well-known muralist, a mentor, and a man whose story reflected both the struggle and the resilience of the community he came from. Raised in Southeast D.C., he turned his experiences into bright, bold murals that transformed bare walls into cultural landmarks. People described him as authentic, energetic, and determined to lift up the younger generation. By the mid-2010s, Donno's presence in the local scene was undeniable. In 2015, he was gaining real traction as a rapper. His music, raw, unfiltered, and grounded in personal experience, resonated deeply across the DMV. Songs like Let Go Me earned him a loyal following, while his live performances built his reputation as an artist who represented DC honestly.
Look at this Lego me. Look at this Lego me. Never been a gangster, just wild nigga. Lego me. Look at this Lego me. Quavo. Look at this Lego me. Bow, nigga. Do you know who I am? Big Donno play on me. Quavo put a honchos on my head. Like I got Lego me. QC one Big Donno day. Now I got Lego me. Look at this Lego me. Look at it. Look at this Lego me. Look at this Lego me. Look at this leg on me. You lucky the night that I came for the chain, and young nigga then I had leg on me. I done cut back and start squeezing that thing. QC just would've been dead to me. You didn't see security when you walked up the stage. When I took your chain, should've seen your face was the move. Hit me with the bottle, that's cool. See me right now, got the tube. You got this little baby confused. I am so rude. You niggas had to jump me. Still left that bitch with no bruise.
He wasn't a mainstream celebrity, but he didn't need to be. In Washington, D.C., Donno was respected. He was a voice from the neighborhood who never pretended to be anything he wasn't. But rising popularity came with rising pressure. He had moments of tension, including a publicized altercation at Stadium nightclub involving members of Migos. Still, Donno kept moving forward, balancing music, mural work, and his growing identity as a creative force in the city. And right in the middle of that rise, his life changed all over again. During this period, Donno was in a relationship with a woman named Sierra. What started as a connection between two young people trying to build a future quickly became something much bigger. Together, they welcomed their son, Razik Williams, a moment Donno later described as life-altering in ways he could never have predicted. The birth of Razik didn't just add another responsibility to Donno's life, it rewrote the script entirely. And that's where the next chapter of his story truly begins. From the moment he learned he had a son, Donno shifted. People who knew him said fatherhood softened him in ways nothing else ever had. He had been moving fast, caught between the pressures of music, the streets, and survival, but now he had something and someone to slow down for.
Leg on my line, she blew me a kiss. 2 hands on the pistol, I'm shooting the shit. I've been in the streets, you new to this shit. I ain't think about a move, cause I got too many bricks. Drop my top, he like my bit. All his leg and all his drip.
He didn't treat fatherhood like an obligation. He treated it like purpose. He showed a level of love and responsibility that transformed him from the inside out. Even when he didn't know exactly what he was doing, he stepped fully into the role. He talked openly about how his son kept him grounded, how caring for Razik kept him away from trouble, and how simply being a father saved him from paths he might have taken otherwise. And it was that bond, pure, powerful, and life-changing, that made what came next almost impossible to survive. Yet something was about to strike his life harder than any industry challenge, harder than any feud, harder than any mistake he had ever made. Because in early 2021, everything changed. That year, Donno's young son, Razik, only 3 years old at the time, was diagnosed with cancer. The news shattered him. Razik was his joy, his grounding force, the piece of his life that made him feel like he was finally doing something right. And now that little boy was suddenly fighting for his life. When doctors confirmed Razik's cancer diagnosis, Donno and Sierra did everything in their power to help him. They stayed with him through chemotherapy, sat beside him during long hospital visits, and worked closely with his medical team to make sure he received every treatment available. They were there for every difficult moment, holding his hand, watching over him, and trying to stay strong even when it hurt to see what he was going through. They shared updates with family and friends, posting moments of hope, smiles, and small victories, anything that showed Razik's courage in the middle of something no child should ever endure. But behind those hopeful updates was a truth Donno rarely spoke about. Watching his son suffer through chemotherapy and hospital stays was tearing him apart. No matter how hard he tried to stay strong, the weight of seeing Razik fight for his life was something he carried quietly, and it was slowly breaking him on the inside. Still, through every treatment and every setback, Donno fought alongside his son. But tragedy was approaching, even though no one wanted to believe it. By January 2024, Razik's condition had worsened. For months, Donno had been begging God not to take his child. He wrote messages full of love and desperation. He tried staying strong for Razik, for Sierra, and for the rest of his family. But on January 9, 2024, the battle came to an end. Razik passed away after a long battle with cancer. He was a young child, and the loss shattered Donno in a way words could never fully capture. This wasn't just the death of a son. It was the death of Donno's purpose, his hope, his reason for choosing a different path in life. Friends and family noticed the shift instantly. Donno grew distant, withdrawn, moving through each day with a kind of heaviness that sat on his chest and refused to lift. The home that once held laughter and movement suddenly became silent. The space left behind by Razik was too large, too painful, too consuming. He tried to cope. He poured himself into his art. He kept making music. He tried uplifting the young artists he mentored, a role he took seriously because he wanted the next generation to succeed. But even as he helped them, he was losing himself.
I really didn't understand, I got some shit I can lose. My young is still spinning, just keep your eyes on the news. And when I touch down, I'm getting right back in my groove. They gave me time.
Grief doesn't heal all at once. It lingers, expands, and eventually fills every corner of a life. And as the months passed, Donno's grief grew heavier, not lighter. What made it worse was that his pain wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive. It was quiet, private, and suffocating. Those closest to him knew something was wrong, but even they couldn't reach the parts of him that had been hollowed out by losing Razik.
What's up, y'all? See, I ain't gonna talk to y'all, I'm gonna talk to him. See, baby boy, the life I used to live was so crazy, you feel me? But when I met you, Sierra said, "You got a son." I'm like, "No, I don't." She sent me a picture of you. I'm like, hold up. Oh, he looked too like me. Oh, moving too fast. Hold up. So I sent it to my mother. My mother said, "You so stupid." I'm like, And when I took the test, and not even before the test part, when she rolled that back window down, you was sitting right there, and he looked at me. And he reached up, and I'm like, "You don't even know who I am." But he looked at me so, like, with a look in his eyes, like, I know I was waiting on you. I started getting them every weekend. Then I started getting them every week. And then he just ended up being with me. But I ended up, like, really taking in the responsibility that I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know I was taking care of little boy. I just was doing it. He changed my life in so many ways. I missed so many bullets, police, all types of stuff because I was busy with him. With that being said, baby boy, I want to say I love you. And thank you, man, for coming into this world to guide me the right way, man. I don't know why God took you away from me, though, but I know why he put you in his life, though. I love you. Your daddy, man.
The year after his son's death became a silent struggle. Donno was fighting a battle no one could truly see. A battle against heartbreak, guilt, hopelessness, and a future that no longer looked like anything he once imagined. But grief has a breaking point, and as the calendar moved toward the summer of 2025, that breaking point was drawing closer. Because while everyone hoped he was healing, Donno was slipping further into a darkness he couldn't find his way out of. And by July, that darkness would lead him back to the place where everything began, Razik's grave. At that time, his posts on social media became more emotional, more direct, more raw. He started to speak openly about trying, failing, trying again, and still feeling lost. And beneath those words was a man who was slipping. The people closest to him hoped he was just expressing his grief. They hoped it meant he was finally letting it out. They hoped it was a sign of healing, not a warning. But on July 21, 2025, that hope shattered. In the early hours of the morning, Donno made a post that stopped everyone cold. A message that read like a final confession, full of love, apology, and exhaustion. He wrote that he was sorry, that he couldn't take it anymore, that he hoped to see everyone again, that he had tried. For his parents, his siblings, his friends, but most of all for Razik. What happened next would send a wave of devastation across the city. After sharing his message, Donno went to the one place where his son still felt close, Razik's gravesite. It was the only place where he felt connected to the child who had once been his whole world. And in that quiet space, surrounded by the weight of everything he had lost, he made the decision no one imagined he would make. He ended his life at his son's grave. The news traveled fast. Shock turned to confusion. Confusion turned to heartbreak, and heartbreak turned into a wave of mourning that swept through Washington, D.C. The city didn't just lose an artist, it lost a father, a mentor, a friend, and a symbol of perseverance who had impacted more lives than he ever realized. But the pain of that loss was felt most deeply by the people who had been part of his everyday world. His family found themselves facing the impossible, grieving a child and a parent within the span of 1 year. Sierra's posts reflected heartbreak wrapped in confusion, a desperate attempt to understand a pain that had moved too fast to stop. Donno's parents, already mourning their grandson, were suddenly confronted with another unimaginable loss. And in that silence, a deeper question began to surface. What happens when the strongest person in the room is the one who needed help the most? Donno's story forced people to confront something that often gets pushed aside. Grief doesn't disappear just because life continues. It lingers, and if no one steps in, it can overwhelm even the strongest hearts. Yet in the middle of this heartbreak, something else began to take shape, something that reflected the very spirit Donno carried through his life. Community members organized vigils not just to mourn, but to remember. Walls across the DMV filled with tributes, not as decoration, but as stories painted in color. Artists painted his smile, his son's face, symbols of hope, fatherhood, and legacy. With each new mural, the community reclaimed the grief and turned it into something that carried meaning instead of silence. But behind those tributes was an even larger truth forming, one that extended beyond Donno, beyond his family, beyond the tragedy itself. His death exposed something many had been avoiding. Emotional pain doesn't always show itself until it's too late. And those conversations didn't fade. They grew louder, spreading through neighborhoods, barbershops, art studios, and community centers. Mothers who had lost children reached out to each other through shared experience. Younger artists started asking for support instead of pretending they didn't need any anymore. Donno's passing didn't just leave sadness, it left awareness, an awareness that emotional wounds can be fatal if ignored. In the aftermath, local groups and family friends helped circulate the GoFundMe organized in Razik's memory, a fund originally created during his cancer treatment. After Donno's death, supporters continued sharing it, helping the family manage burial costs and keep Razik's memory alive through community-driven acts of support. As people donated, commented, and shared memories, it became clear that this wasn't just about money. It was about standing together for a family that had suffered more than anyone ever should. It was about acknowledging that grief is a collective experience, not something people should have to face alone. And it was about honoring a father and son whose bond had left an imprint on an entire city. In the end, Donno's story became more than a tragedy. It became a lesson, one carried by every person who heard it, repeated quietly through conversations about healing, vulnerability, and community care. And as this chapter closes, the message left behind is one worth holding on to. Love can change a person, grief can break a person, and compassion can save a person. Donno's legacy isn't defined by the moment his life ended. It's defined by every life he touched, every wall he painted, every artist he uplifted, and every memory shared by the people who loved him. May he rest in peace. May Razik rest in peace. And may their story continue to inspire connection, understanding, and the courage to reach out when the weight becomes too heavy to carry alone.